things move once you move. And that was the hardest thing for me, was to actually move, because I decide and then I talk myself out of it. And then I decide and then I talk myself out of it. But when you decide and you start moving in the direction of that decision, that's when everything shifts to start supporting you. Well, hello there, prosperity seeker, and welcome to another episode of the Prosperity Approach. I'm your host, Allyson Chavez. As always, I'm so honored and so excited that you are here with me today, whether you're listening to this or whether you're watching this on YouTube. It's always such a pleasure to have you on and be here with me. I have a special treat for you today. We've got a special guest. We're going to dive into faith, intuition, trusting it, following it, what happens when we don't, all of those things. But before I bring him on, if you're listening to the audio version of this episode, be sure you're following the podcast on your favorite app. And if you're watching this on YouTube right now, we would definitely appreciate if you would subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you're notified every time another episode is released and you're on the up and up with everything going on with Allyson Chavez International. So I am so honored to have this next guest on this episode today. I was actually honored to be on his podcast a few months back, and had so much fun with him. I said, Agi, I want my audience to know you. I need to have you on my podcast so that people can feel your energy and listen to your amazing accent and just learn from your wisdom and also like your experiences as well. So Agi Keramidas is on a lifelong journey of pursuing personal growth, fulfillment, reaching his potential. He is the host of Personal Development Mastery, that podcast, and his mission is to influence and inspire people to stand out and take action towards the next level of their lives. And he gave me this really beautiful bio, and I thought, oh, Agi, people want to hear your story more than they want me to read your story. So not only is Agi Keramidas an amazing person, his podcast ranks actually in the global top 1.5%. So Agi, like, you're a big deal. Thank you so much for being on the Prosperity Approach today.
Allyson, it's a real pleasure to speak with you again. And indeed, we had a wonderful conversation in my podcast a few months ago. So I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak with you again, this time on the opposite end of the question.
So I think sometimes it's easier to be the interviewer than the guest on a podcast. What do you think about that?
Yes, it is. There are completely different things. It is easier for me and, for you, for someone who does interviews. I mean, I've done about 200 of them. It's easier because I don't have the responsibility of coming up with great answers.
Exactly. So you're in the hot seat now, Agi, especially talking about faith and intuition and trusting that intuition and taking that leap of faith. So I want to hear your journey. I mean, you grew up in Greece. You had a definite pulling on your heart. Did you follow it? Did you not? Tell us all about your journey with faith and intuition.
Sure. Yes. Thank you. Yes, I am Greek, originally from Greece. I grew up there. My intuition and my calling, I started realizing it in my teenage years when I had the strong calling to go to acting school because I was quite talented, with things like that. And instead of that, because I was in a conservative family with two parents who were quite established at what they did. My mom in particular was a dentist, so it made complete sense for them for me to go to dental school instead, because my future would be secure, and all these things. Of course, I was 17 at that time and I was not very good at standing up to myself, shall we say. So I kind of let that go without putting too much of a fight at that time. And I went to dental school in Greece. I studied dentistry. I practiced in Greece as a dentist for around just short of a decade. And I'm moving forward, the intuition story that you said. I had another quite big, even bigger this time, actually, because I was in my mid-30s, a calling that I need to move to the UK somehow, everything that the United Kingdom, England. So in my mind, anything that was related to that country at that time seemed like a magical place. I had this kind of drawing to it, everything, from the cars driving on the other side of the road to all these things. And of course, I didn't know what it was. I had no idea, but it was quite a strong intuitive feelings, I would say. It's, you know very well that it's not easy to describe those things because they're not, of the language. They're not like thoughts as such. They're more like feelings or sensations.
Yeah. Did you feel
But
pulled? Did it just pull to you and call to you?
I felt pulled. What I remember feeling is every time I would kind of day drift into me moving and living there, I would lose myself and have a really big smile. And then I would come back to reality and say, oh, wow, this was good. So it was at that time that I realized more and more that this was something calling me. At the same time, just to give some context, I was unfulfilled with my life in Greece, despite the external success that I had as a dentist there. I had my own practice. I was engaged to be married and so on. But I didn't feel full in my heart. I felt the opposite. I was quite on a slippery slope with, drinking and smoking. I was trying to compensate for something that I didn't even know what it was. So anyway, just bringing this story to a close because I want to see where you will guide me next. It was after a long period of contemplation that I decided to live my life in Greece as I knew it, my job, my family, my fiancé, my friends and everything, and move on my own to the UK following that calling. And of course, it's been like close to 15 years now. Looking back at it, it's probably the most definitive, definitive is not the right word, the most important, shall we say, and great also decision that I've taken in my life because it completely changed, well, everything really. So I will take a pause here and see where you want to take it.
So how long did it take you to actually move, to make those huge changes in your life?
3 years.
3 years. That's actually
Yeah.
fast.
Is it? I didn't think like that. Yeah.
That's actually a relatively short amount of time because when I first got the inklings to leave the industry I was in and pursue something completely different, it actually took me 5 years and quite a bit of discomfort and internal discontent before I finally leaned into it and trusted it and made those changes. And it wasn't moving countries and it was just changing industries was all. And I, at that point in my life, didn't trust my intuition. I had fear-based faith, which actually isn't possible because those are two completely different things. So if it took you 3 years, what finally dropped to make you take that action?
That's a great question. I think it was during those 3 years. First, I had more of the opportunity to really think through it and feel it and really understand what it is that I want to do, the pros and cons, shall we say, of its side. But I think the tipping point, really, it was not like I had made 2 lists and I thought, okay, this list is bigger. It was nothing like that. The tipping point was that the discontent in me was way too much. I mean, I couldn't keep on doing what I was doing because I looked ahead. I projected how my life would be in 5 years if I didn't do anything like that. And it didn't look good. Actually, it looked scary. I didn't want to, go down that path. I saw myself in that potential future and I really didn't like it. So that gave me more motivation to take some initial decisions. And, as things happen in this case, once you take one decision, then things started happening. So I remember, and I will give you this because it's a really great example of synchronicity. The moment I said, I think I will do that application to go to England because there were dental jobs here, but I needed to apply, of course, and be accepted.
Mhm.
The moment I did that application, I started having patients to my practice. One of them had just returned from England. He was studying there, and I thought, oh my God. So we were chatting about that, things like that. More and more people that reinforced that this is really, I'm in the right path here. I mean, this is happening, and things started happening more and more. So from the moment I did that definitive decision that, what, I'm going to do it, then it took about 7-8 months. So then things happened very quickly, but it took me about 2.5 years to prepare for that moment, or for life to prepare me to be to be ready at that moment to say, no, I really have to now.
And I appreciate you saying that, because I've had a very similar experience. And there's a part of me that wants to have regret that it took so long for me to finally trust and like take that leap of faith and trust my intuition and start really honing my intuition. And then there was another part of me that's like, well, hang on though. Like, you believe in God, you believe in a higher power in this universe. He knew it was going to take you that long. So like he had to prepare you. He had to start preparing you 5 years. For me, it was 5 years. 5 years previous to when like he really, really needed you there. Like it wasn't a surprise to him that you'd be filled with fear and would let the fear guide for a very, very long time. So I've learned how to have some compassion on myself with that. But boy, I'll tell you what, like the amount of angst I could have saved myself, and the magic that I cut myself off from. You were talking about that synchronicity, and where like people just come and signs just come that let you know you're on that right path. And so there's part of me that has a little bit of sadness too, like, oh man, I cut myself off from the magical workings of this universe. But that's okay. I'm here now. I'm more comfortable leaning in now, and so they happen much more frequently for me. But here's the thing that I want to point out too. You said once you made a definitive decision, like this is happening, after that is when the patients came that just got back from England or were moving to England, and you see the signs. Like I would see literal signs like billboards and
Yeah.
bumper stickers on cars, and I'd read a book and they were talking about, in your case, like England, or in my case, Hawaii, or
Yes.
like whatever. It was just like, oh, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And when I first was diving into that, I thought, well, what a coincidence, right? Like, no, this is just because that's what I'm looking for. And no, like when you'll just lean into how the universe works, and it's actually very science based, but it feels like magic to us, and it's such a relief. I don't know, did you feel a relief when you finally like leaned into it? Because I felt enormous relief when I finally leaned into it.
Yes, I did. It was like a weight was lifted. When I went
Yes.
on the other side, there was no, I not once did I ever thought this was wrong or I should go back. Not once, never. Even during the challenges. And you were saying earlier about the regret and that internal battle, and I think that's normal. It's in our human nature to want to do things as quickly as possible now, tomorrow, if we can. But we have to go through our own self evolution or expansion to be ready for the experience. And you remind me of that phrase that says, if I were to live my life again, I would do the same mistakes, only sooner. Yeah, because we need to, have more time, but it doesn't work that way. We have to follow the path that we are on. As much as we would like to skip to the next chapter, it might take a while, and I have learned that from my own personal experience. I'm sure also with you, Allyson, and also the listener, I think, can understand what we're talking about. That sometimes you expect things to happen soon, and
Mhm.
they don't. It might take weeks, months, years before
Mhm.
what you had in mind happens. But trusting in the path of life, that's I think the important thing to realize. You put your effort. We put your effort. Don't get me wrong. We will do what we need to do, but the
Mhm.
end result is not up to us, or when it will
Mhm.
happen, it's not up to us.
Yes, like just be here for the ride and do the things that you feel impressed to do, that you feel nudged to do. Follow the pings, especially when they don't make any logical sense. I appreciate, like, you made that list of pros and cons. So we get so cerebral about our intuitive hits, don't we? And we're just like, all right, let's just puzzle this out. Let's reason this out. And this is where I found for me, I had so much internal conflict because intuition is that part of it's the mental faculty that responds to vibration. It doesn't respond to a timeline. It doesn't respond to like logic and facts and reasoning. It responds to vibration. But the universe doesn't move until you do. Like it'll bring things, at least in my experience, it made me very, very uncomfortable. So circumstances got more and more uncomfortable. It sounds like, at least for you too, that was also the case, because you said it just got harder and harder to stay where you were. Like that discontent grew more and more and more. And it's when the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of change, that's when like we take this action. So but the universe isn't going to force us to do those things. It's just going to make us so much more comfortable with how things are, and the relief that comes like when you'll lean into that and just know like everything is meant and it is going to work out for you. It just that's how the fabric of the universe is woven. And through every microsecond of your existence, the universe supports you and it's friendly to your needs, but it's not going to force you to choose up. It's not going to force you to choose down or take any sort of action. But things move once you move. And that was the hardest thing for me, was to actually move, because I decide and then I talk myself out of it. And then I decide and then I talk myself out of it. But when you decide and you start moving in the direction of that decision, that's when everything shifts to start supporting you. I do want to touch base though for just a second. You said following your intuition and having that faith sustained you even during the challenges. And I really appreciate that you said that, because I think also we have this naive part of ourselves that are like, well, if I follow my intuition, I have faith, and all my troubles are over. And has that been your experience, Agi?
No, absolutely
Mine either.
not. The troubles won't be over, because that life doesn't end there. Life has to carry on, and to carry on, you have to keep on growing and keeping expanding. So you have done this step, you have taken the step, you are in the next chapter. Of course, you can't stay there, you have to move on and on. So there will be different challenges, and hopefully the challenges will keep on rising, because that means that your life is also growing in a direction. Because if you don't have any challenges, I don't know, I think you're not listening to this conversation if you don't have any. It's impossible to be alive and not have challenges. But to answer your question, no, the challenges didn't end, but I never looked at the challenges as an excuse to doubt my decision. Shall we say my decision was so firm, and I knew it, in my heart, because of things that happened, synchronistic events that really happened, especially the first time when I moved to the country, that really reinforced that belief that, wow, this is so beautiful. Things are happening for me. So having that additional, let's say, faith, I will use this word, increased faith, it really helps you be more firm. Unshakable is the word that comes to mind when these challenges come, because you know that I'm on the right path. Yeah, this will come and it will go as well. So the challenges, I remember with our conversation when you came to my podcast, you said that challenge is necessary, but struggle is not. So I remember you were saying that, and I agree very much with it. So the challenges are part of our expansion. We can't expand unless we are challenged.
Yes, agreed. Yeah. I agree. What does faith mean to you? How do you describe faith for you?
It's the knowing that I belong, and I'm trying to choose my words carefully. I belong, or I am a part of something bigger than me. So it's not just an individual, piece of flesh and bone moving around and thinking whatever he is in his head. So faith is the understanding that I am part of a bigger whole, that I might not necessarily have a great understanding about through my limited perspective, but there is a bigger picture there. It is for the good. That's how I see it, regardless of whether I see it as good or not. From the absolute point of view. So faith is really having that conviction that you are not on your own. There is something bigger out there, let's say, guiding you, or if you want, orchestrating or writing this whole big play that we're all part of, this great act that we participate in. I don't know. It came completely, Allyson. Thank you for the question. I don't remember the last time someone asked me what faith means to me. So it kind of bubbled up. So thank you for the opportunity.
Do you know, I love that. I love that description of faith, when you understand that there's a bigger power than you that's working through you, and that everything is for good, even if you can't see it and you don't know how it's all going to work out, but that there's a power higher than you that wants to include you in this great masterpiece and this great play that we're a part of. I think that's beautiful. That actually gives me a whole lot of comfort with faith. To me, I had faith explained to me that faith is truth spoken in advance, and it's what you can see in your eye, but you don't yet hold in your hands. And so, like, when you can see yourself in England, and when you can see yourself, and you loved going there, and you in your mind, and you would have such a big smile on your face. Like, I think that was God directing you. That was God showing you possibilities, and you leaning into that, and just like letting that be real in your mind. And then you followed through with that, because your soul longed to be there. And that was the next part of your development with your soul. So I think faith and trust are very closely linked, and intuition is a big part of that faith and trust. So I would love to hear, just for a few minutes, what are some ways that your intuition speaks to you?
Again, a great question, and not necessarily an easy one to answer.
I know it's not.
It is more of a sensation. It's more, I would say, the body that speaks rather than a voice or words. It's not words. It is a knowing, which is probably the best way I can describe it, that But what there is this question that all of us have at one time or the other. When we have an idea or some calling, there is this dilemma. Is this really coming from our intuition, or is it just our mind that is projecting that? And for me, the way I understand that it's coming from my higher self, from my intuition, is, and I'm just going to use the people that can see us, they can see what I'm doing, rising up. But it feels like it's coming upwards. It's coming from, from, I don't know, my chest, my belly, somewhere, not my head anyway. It's coming upwards. And that's probably the best way I can describe it. It's more like a feeling, a physical sensation. And I think another characteristic it gives me is that it leaves me with a pleasant sensation, not with a thing, oh my God, not I don't feel, oops, fearful or something like that. I feel optimistic when I look at that. So these are just, for me, some of the signs, the characteristics that something is coming from my intuition or my higher self, if you want.
I think that's beautiful. And I think one of the reasons why it took me so long to trust my intuition is that my head was so cluttered with doubt and fear and second guessing, and intuition comes to your body. Like your intuition speaks to your body. And so you have, and it's not loud. I mean, it can get loud, like it can build. And sometimes people get like really, if there's something acute that's happening, like your intuition can warn you of danger and be really, really loud and clear with you about it. But it's still up to you whether you follow your intuition and avoid the danger or go into the danger. But my head was so noisy and there was so much clutter that I had a very hard time trusting my intuition, because intuition is quiet. And it, like you said, like it comes into your heart, and it comes into like you were talking about, a knowing. Like I had a knowing, but it wasn't logical. And so my head would try to make some reason out of it, and I would instantly constrict. I would instantly go into fear, which, to your point, that's not intuition. Intuition is going to make you feel expansive. Intuition, it fills you with optimism, and it fills you with like those possibilities. And intuition also, I found for me, is not it's not judgmental. And it's not a, you should do this or you must do this. Many times for me, it does come in as an idea, or it comes as a feeling. But it's also like, I got nothing on it. Like you can choose it or not, whatever you want to do. I like it. It's just complete detachment, which is, I mean, definitely a sign, I think, that our higher self and our angels and God are speaking to us, because there isn't any attachment to whatever you choose. But here's a nudge and here's a ping, and you can follow it or you cannot. But boy, I have found that life gets really juicy and really exciting really quickly when I follow it. And that's when opportunities open up.
Can I offer just now? Sorry, I will interrupt quickly. I will offer something practical that I do, because, what you said about ideas, I also understand them. They come up as ideas. So I have found that the best way to maintain them is to write them down. As soon as they happen, I have a specific page in my diary, which is, my inspirations, and I write it down, because you won't be able to act on each of them, or some of them you won't even go down that path. But for me, I found that unless I write it down, it tends to be forgotten after a while. Of course, if it is something that comes up and up over and over again, that's the big one. But there are smaller nudges like this that I find it useful to keep track of them and then review them.
Oh, I love that, Agi. I love that. Writing them down. And you said something, you just dropped a truth bomb. I don't think you realized you dropped a truth bomb. So I have to point this out. You said, if they keep coming back again and again and again, that's a big one. Yes. If it won't leave your mind, follow it. But I have found that most, like when I was first getting into my intuition and starting to because intuition is a skill, it's a muscle, you can grow it, which is wonderful. It's not just given to a select few special people. All of us have that, but it is a skill that we get to learn and develop. So when I was first learning my intuition, it was big. Like it talked to me in big ways, like you were saying, where it wouldn't leave my mind. But I didn't know that was my intuition. So, whatever. But it does. Like it'll be really obvious if you're looking, if you know what to look for. If you can't get out of your mind, then follow it. And what I have found, and I'd be interested to know whether you have this experience as well, that my intuition really, for the most part, speaks very quietly to me now. Like it's much more subtle than it is in my face, so to speak, because I have been honing it. Have you had that same experience?
It is more quiet. Yes, I hadn't realized that until now that you say it, but it's sometimes I miss having clearer.
I know.
It's way too quiet, and at times anyway, it seems to be like that. It's what I was describing earlier about that feeling I had when I was still in Greece. It's nothing like that. I don't know, maybe it will come back to something if it is some major thing, but it's certainly more subtle now.
Yes.
I suppose I have honed it more, as you said. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it, to be honest.
Thank you for being real. I feel the same.
Yeah.
I feel the same.
I can't say I have figured it out, Allyson, and I know, with certainty, this is intuition, I will do it. This is not, I will not. No, it's a wish, but it's a process, and it's enjoyable to learn it.
It really is. And I think sometimes, like to your point, I'm like, why can't it just smack me around like it used to? But I want to be a really, really good listener. I want my spiritual ears really in tune. And anything that I'm wanting to hone as a skill, God is always like, I'm going to give you so much practice with this. And we're going to give you practice right away. So right now I'm working on surrender and letting go. And wow, are there so many things all throughout the day that I get to practice on. And so I hate to say be careful what you wish for, but just know that if there's a skill that you want to hone, God and the universe love you so much that you will immediately have opportunities to start practicing that skill. So just dive into it, just embrace it. Just like if you're wanting to develop your faith, God's going to give you some things that feel really uncertain to you and going to give you bigger dreams that scare you initially, but they're actually tailor-made for you. And so like just start leaning in and just start playing with it and experimenting with it. And I think especially now more than ever, the world is noisier than it's ever been before. It's more polarizing than it's ever been before. And so those opportunities to hone our intuition, really the field is really rich. The harvest is really rich right now. This is a wonderful time to start learning if you're brand new with intuition, or enhancing and advancing your intuition to let it be more subtle and to increase your levels of faith and trust in a power bigger than you and your mission here on this earth. So, Agi, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much. I know people are going to be like, where do I find him? And you have a really, really cool gift for us as well. So tell us your podcast, tell us where they can find you, tell us the gift you have. It's all you, Agi.
Thank you, Allyson. So my podcast is called Personal Development Mastery. I'm at the time we're recording this, so obviously when you listen to this, it would be past that. I'm about to hit episode 300, so I have quite, a fruitful, shall we say, production of podcasts, because I really enjoyed it, and it is really my passion and my mission to really inspire the listener, to influence them, to take some action and change their life, because we deserve to change our life if we're unfulfilled. So my podcast is Personal Development Mastery. You can find it anywhere you listen to your podcast. It's going to be there. And as for my free gift, it comes as a extension, with 300 podcasts, someone finding out about me would normally say, well, okay, where do I begin? It's not possible to look at 300. So what I have created is a free ebook, which I'm going to share, that includes, I have picked out of those 300 episodes, the top 10 about money, the top 10 about health, and the top 10 about self-mastery. And this way you can really dive into the content that is the most valuable, and I think also that reinforces what I am really trying to do there. It's not to produce more content and information, it's really to distill these learnings into wisdom, into practical implementation, so that you can take some action and improve, grow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that is a treasure trove, Agi. What a brilliant, was that an intuitive hit that you got to create that? Because that is amazing, because that is an extensive library that you have because it'll be well over 300 episodes by the time this particular episode is published. And like, where do you start? And if that's one of the issues, like there's so much abundance, we get overwhelmed by it. So where do we even start? So I love that you've just got the top 10 in those categories of wherever you're at, what pings to you, follow that. That's your intuition, follow that hit. And you will love it. So all of the links that Agi talked about to his podcast, to his free ebook, all of these are in the show notes. So make sure that you take advantage of those. Agi, thank you so much. You have blessed my life so much today. And I know you've blessed our listeners and our watchers' lives as well. So thank you. Thank you so much. And to those of you who have tuned in today, thank you. And just a little reminder, remember, prosperity becomes you.